recording this on Thursday instead of Friday like normal because tomorrow's the 4th of July. So,
Yeah.
um,
Happy
we're
Fourth
like,
to everyone.
happy 4th, happy 4th. Yeah, well, if it's the first time here, welcome to episode 4 of Creative Flux, the podcast where we dive into how we're actually using AI, focused on creativity, media gen, and workflows that are, working for us. I'm Pierson Marks.
And I'm Bilal Tahir.
And yeah, and it's just a conversation. And, Bilal, I think it's been fun so far. We're 4 episodes. This will be the 4th episode. We've talked about the first episode we talked about, was that image gen? Was that number one? I
Yeah,
forget now.
VO3 was the first one, and I think second
VO3.
one was 11 Labs text to speech, and third one last week we talked about a little bit about image editing and what else? I feel like it was a random. We did a lot of random post AGI philosophical musings. I feel.
Right. It was kind of cool. We were talking about like post reality. I actually brought that up last on Tuesday. So I had this like a conversation with this group called the AI Salon, and it was pretty fun. They're all later in their career, but they're really embracing AI. It's really cool to see because they're executives or they're just enthusiasts that are really passionate about this space.
That's awesome.
And it's not like young people that, you think about new technology, you think a lot about young people. And I'm not saying that's like a bad thing at all. It's like really cool to see an organization that's catering towards more of like people that are more experienced in their careers that just like, well, this stuff is amazing. I'm using it for fun, or I'm using it to like help me accomplish more things in the day. But yeah, I mean, I brought up this whole thing where we were talking about post-reality image gen. Like when the videos and when the images get to the point of being like perfect, everything we generate like could be perfect. Like what happens then? You know?
Yeah, it's so interesting and funny. And by the way, I love the name AI Salon. It gave me a picture of you just sitting there, like getting a manicure with like humanoids and just like talking about AI.
Right,
Love it.
right,
Yeah. No, it's so interesting. Like, kind of going off that, I was watching this talk by Fai Li, who's one of the, OGs,
right,
in the AI space. She was a Stanford professor, and her lab made ImageNet, and then ultimately AlexNet
right.
used that ImageNet data set, to win the 2012 competition. And she's like big on spatial intelligence. She thinks that's the next frontier. But she was talking about how, like, what we think of reality, it's actually like 2D projection. We take these inputs, and our eyes actually, make a 2D projection of that. So even what we think is real is actually not real. Like, it's like a fascinating Plato's cave kind of a experiment where, because we just assume whatever is around us is the baseline reality. But what is reality? It could be there's so much going on around us. But our eyes are just not enough to take that signal. And so maybe AI can actually process a lot more information and get a richer picture of what's actually a reality. So
Right. I mean, it's like that thing where is my blue the same blue that you see? I
right,
mean, I don't
right.
know. And is it like it kind of combines all these really interesting aspects of, communication, because language is limited in that sense where you can't really communicate exactly what you see. Like I can't explain to you like what is this color that I see on my plant right here? And it's green. It's a dark shade of green. And could I explain that thing to you perfectly and you were able to always capture the right sense of green? Like I could reference to, hey, it looks like an olive
Hmm.
or it looks like a palm tree leaf. And then you have your interpretation of what that is. But it's like a limit in communication ability that like prevents us from actually seeing the same thing.
Right,
So,
yeah. No, it's super fascinating. Like, and what happens when that, what do you call it, the Tower of Babel, where, God invented languages and created this friction between us, that goes away and we actually can communicate seamlessly. What happens? It's like, what do you call it, a hive. We're like almost become
right.
a hive mind where, everyone's thought just can be instantly transported to each other.
Totally. No, it's such an interesting. I've had this conversation, and just thoughts. Just you go down the rabbit holes of, okay, yeah, what if we could instantly communicate? And if I could just transmit via my brain to your brain, and then there's no more like issues in communication. We just kind of have context. And that's kind of crazy. Like, I mean, today, Cursor just released their 1.2 update, which general like GA'd memories, um, and improves like context awareness and doing like a better sort of lookup for your code. And eventually, I mean, like, this is what they're working on and what they're doing, but
Mm.
our entire team is going to have like, hey, Pearson writes code this way, Bilal writes code this way, team wants to write code this way because of the comments on those PRs. And how can we like write code through Cursor that like adheres to kind of the standards from the team, and it's kind of like it knows all this context and kind of takes you as a unique individual contributing and then puts it through this like filter sort of like, hey, I want to do this thing, and Cursor and AI will take it and then, adhere to all those guidelines, has the context of like how code has been written in the past, and actually ultimately produces something that is higher quality without the back and forth, like you giving me a feedback, hey, why did you do it this way? We do it
Right.
this other way, you know?
Yeah,
So,
no, it's fascinating. Yeah.
and for anyone listening that doesn't know what Cursor is, it's a code editor. So, with AI sprinkled in everywhere, it's really cool.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it keeps getting better. I'm
But
excited about using the latest feature. I think they have like to-do lists now and PR, like you can get a PR review, etc. So, yeah.
and they stole the Claude Code uh, PMs, right, or the engineers on Claude Code.
Oh yeah, yeah, I saw that. That was wait, no, I thought Claude stole Cursor's guy. Was it? Like,
No, I think no. Cursor stole Anthropic's people.
it's all a mess right now. I mean, everyone's,
Yeah,
speaking
and
of that, maybe
everybody.
yeah. Speaking of that, maybe this is a good point to jump into the probably the spiciest news of the week.
Yes, let's
One
explain this.
a guy named Soham Parekh. Yeah, apparently I don't even know how to like set this one up because this I guess it started with this tweet from this guy called Sohail, who I think is a former he did what was that company make that analytics company, I forgot its name, Meta something, Mixpanel, yeah, I
Next
think
panel.
that was his. Yeah, he went to YC with Mixpanel. They had a good exit or whatever, so I guess he was a first time founder, or at least that was his success. And then he moved to I think Mighty Computers and stuff. He doesn't really talk about that anymore, but which kind of flopped. I thought it was an interesting idea. It was basically a cloud in the computers, like where you don't you can have basically a cloud server running your OS, and then you access it. And his whole thing was like, oh, you don't need to upgrade hardware and stuff. You can just access the latest cloud instances and get the software upgrade. And yeah, maybe it was too early in its time because of the latency issues and stuff. Google Stadia was also a thing during this time when
Oh, right.
everyone's thinking it was going to be over the cloud, but just didn't pan out for any of those. And then he moved to Playground AI. I think mostly that's what he's doing, which I don't know where it's at right now, but it's basically you can. He started with Stable Diffusion, but now they host a bunch of models. Anyways,
Right.
uh,
Right.
TLDR was what happened was he put out this mess tweet that said that his he was hiring this guy and apparently he was a scammer, and what he does is like he um, will apply to you get and not do any work, but he also simultaneously working like a dozen like half a dozen other jobs. And this concept is called overemployed. Actually, I actually know about this since COVID, because it became a big thing when COVID happened, because remote work became a thing and it was possible for people to get multiple jobs at once, and so they would just do that. And uh, there's a spectrum. There's like one side is like you get the job, you don't do anything, and you get the pay, and you move on to the next job, and it's
Right.
basically a scam. That's one end. On the other hand, I mean, actually, people are like, I can do this job in 10 hours instead of 40. So what am I doing for the other 30? And so the people hold multiple jobs, and they actually get promoted and stuff. So I've like so it really depends on who you are as a person. It's a murky thing. Some people actually do the job, and sometimes even
Right.
their employers know. Other hand, it's more of a scam. In this case, this Soham Parekh guy apparently was definitely a scam. In fact, he took it further, where apparently what he does is it's not even him. So what he does is he's really good at interviewing with lead code or whatever. He goes, he does the interview, passes an interview, and then he just gives access to what he has a dev shop running in India, and he's from India, and one of his junior guys like takes over, and he'll do like one PR every 3 weeks or something, just to try to do the bare minimum and try to keep the paychecks coming until like it's over. So anyway, so Hale puts out his tweet like, this guy, beware of this guy. He's been doing this for a year. I told him to stop. He's not. And then it just exploded. And suddenly people were DMing him and retweeting. He's like, oh shit, I hired this guy last week. Oh my god, yes, I hired this guy. Or we interviewed this guy, and it became a thing. And it was just so funny, because on the one hand, obviously what this guy did, he's a scammer. This is a grift. I don't support it at all. But the fact that so many Silicon Valley startups just hired this guy, or just had this a process that kind of hired for this guy, is kind of a tell. That there's this monoculture of requirements of these companies who supposedly are supposed to be out of the box thinkers and are trying to disrupt the world. So I just found that funny.
Totally. It's wild to me. I mean, like, I have such a strong opinion on kind of interviewing process, and it'll be interesting as, as we grow at JellyPod to, really create a process that hopefully these types of people never even like get past, because I
Right.
like leak code. I mean, you could hack the leak code if your whole gig is like just passing interviews.
Right.
You grind out leak code. You've seen every single problem. There's just so many like really, especially with the age of AI, like being able to communicate design, sort of like why you do this way, like why you do it this way, like how would the user think about,
Hmm.
and I have a whole list of interview questions that kind of, most engineers that are just engineers wouldn't really be able to think about, because it's like less of engineering, which is expectation, but more of like design and more of like product, and something that I think we're both pretty
Yeah,
decent at.
yeah. And I think even before just going that, we like they Silicon Valley indexes so much on lead. Well, basically, if you have an Xfang label or lead code, and the resume, like he'll put up his resume. It was such a joke,
Right.
and I'm like, one great way to avoid that is just before you even get to the interview, filter for that by looking at their GitHub or what kind of projects they do, etc. And I feel like in the age of AI, you can be very sophisticated about it. You can literally scrape the profiles, go through the commits, and actually see if it wasn't like he just forked like whatever, like Kubernetes, and just made a readme update or whatever commit, like because that's a
Right.
scam too. People will want to be contributors on big projects. I've seen that happen. But there's we have tooling now to kind of look and get a smart signal, at least on that end, for people who are active, who have open source projects, etc., who contribute on GitHub and social media. You can do that. Now, does that's an incomplete solution, because a lot of people, they work for Google, or they won't have time for open source projects. And so I totally understand if your GitHub, just because your GitHub is empty doesn't mean you're not coding or you don't have the skill set. I'm just saying, but that's one way you can actually find good people. That I feel like is
Totally.
so underused, utilized.
Totally.
Like
No, I
even today. I mean,
absolutely
I feel
agree.
like today, if you look at it on Twitter and stuff, the best way startups find is like they're like DM me, or who do I need to hire, product guy, marketing guy, and people will like recommend people. I mean, this, especially in the age of this automation where there's so many bots, this word of mouth, recommendation has just become probably one of the strongest signal of how to get good people.
Oh,
So very
100%. I
underutilized.
mean, I have so many friends that I think so. Like, I studied computer science in undergrad, and then I graduated in like 5 years ago, and then I worked for Amazon for a while. And a few of my friends that were younger than me or decided to change career paths went to like the CS master's route. Like, they were engineering smart people, and then they got like a master's from like somewhere in computer science. And some people still ask me today, like friends and younger siblings, will be like, hey, like, what's your thoughts here and everything? And like, you can go do that. Cool. Like, don't expect that to get you a job, because I'm like, hey, the job market's hard right now for engineers as well. I think there's like a small pool that are getting the $100 million, obviously from Meta and like those crazy. And then there's like the startup people and they have word of mouth, but like the entry level market for just like a baseline engineer is the rug's been pulled. And I'm telling every one of my friends that like, can code, like, it's like you have to prove it. And how are you going to prove it? It's like, hey, find a open source project that you enjoy, or like spend a week and just find one. Like, find a project that like maybe there's some issues that are out there, or like Claude Code. That's a great, like, if you're interested at all in AI right now, Claude Code is an open source SDK that is accepting, like, has a bunch of issues. It's accepting PRs. It's actively maintained. Like, how much cooler would it be? Like, hey, like I built like a significant portion of that Claude Code. It's like, 500 lines of code, a
Yeah,
thousand lines of code.
yeah.
Add this new feature.
Yeah,
Do it.
and you got to talk about it. Like it's not enough. Like it's hard, especially. I mean, and as someone who it's been hard, really getting into the marketing distribution game. You have to, if you're, obviously, if you do videos or YouTube and stuff, that's great. But if even if you're camera shy, you need to be posting about it on LinkedIn, on whatever your social. Like, hey, I did this. Check it out. I know it sounds cringy. Maybe you're shelling, but honestly. It's Gregory Glenn Ross out there. Always be closing, always be selling. You kind of have to sell yourself. It's like, but the good news is most people don't. Like, it's literally a cheat code, to getting the opportunity you want in life. Just put yourself out there. So,
Right. Get your buy your domain name. Like this is something I did a long
yeah.
time ago. I have
Oh,
PearsonMarks.com,
oh, nice.
and it's
Wow.
it's
That's, I
like
didn't know that.
yeah, so I have PearsonMarks.com, and I've kind of like over the years played around with it. It's like right now it's a basic blog with some of my writing. I'm actually going to rip that down and put something else up with like
Mm,
Creative Flux, like put the podcast there, and then also
nice.
like put writings, and then do all of the above and make it a little bit better. One, it's like it's your authority in the world, especially when AI becomes like a major contributor to everything on the internet.
Right.
Like, who are you, and what's your social proof? It's like, hey, this is me. This is what I write. Here are my thoughts, like my uniquely human thoughts, and I'm putting them out on the internet. Maybe one person, maybe zero people ever come across it. Maybe one person does. Eventually, they get sucked up into the next iteration of training data of all these new models. And then, it's like, hey, Pierson Marks, he's the CEO of JellyPod, and they work on AI podcasting. And I think is a huge opportunity here for people to just put their thoughts on the internet. And it's hard because you have to sit down and actually write. And most people don't like writing or like creating, like what we're doing here. I mean, it's easy to have a conversation for sure, easier than writing, I think. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's about, I think the world is gonna be, it's gonna be about agency is gonna become so important. It's always been important, but it's like maybe it was 10 to 1 before it'll become 100 or 1,000 to 1, where the person who just takes action is just going to get so much more outsized results versus a person who doesn't, and that delta is just going to be insane, right?
Totally.
So
Totally.
so you
And this
want to
is
be on the
pretty,
right side of that.
no, for sure. I
Basically.
mean, and
Yeah.
this relates to kind of like this whole like podcast and this conversation here about like Creative Flux and like kind of what we're trying to do is like we'll talk about like the news and images and video and audio and all these cool tools. We'll talk about how we're using them. And this relates because a lot of people have this like really niche domain knowledge. I mean, I think about it. You go to college, you have a you get a bachelor's degree, master's, a PhD in some niche content, and you're going deep, but you never really like spread outside of that. But while going deep, you start little bit like it's like a funnel. You go like broad, you have your general eds, your master's, your PhD, all the way down. And at the very bottom, like you're like one of, if you're a bachelor's, you're like one of a few 100,000 people, a million people, whatever. Then masters, even fewer, PhD, even fewer. But you have such domain depth in something. But now with AI, you can start to spread. Like you've one, been able to think about problems logically, solve complicated, unsolved things, and you can start to ask better questions and start to spread out your depth that like got narrower and narrower. But AI starts to grow that and start to make it easier to connect the dots between things because you don't need to know necessarily the right question. You just need to be in the kind of right direction. And AI kind of will help you like, oh, like, hey, if you're dealing with, I don't know, some weird like, protein folding and you're dealing in medicine, you're a smart person, but you're so like in your bubble, and
Right.
AI kind of helps you get out of that bubble. And that's really cool as long as you're using it and actually kind of, playing around with it and exploring your creativity and exploring what you're interested in. outside of
Yeah,
what like your
absolutely.
day-to-day
Yeah,
job is.
there's something so magical about the cross domain. I think that's one of the things I think people don't understand. Like AI, the way AI is going to help is like you said, most people are in this one field or maybe two, but AI will connect the chemistry problem to the physics problem to the bio. Like there's all these domains. Like you hear all the time about some discovery happened, but it was actually in the biology department 30 years ago. But the guy who had the physics expertise needed to see it, and that conversation didn't happen until this weird conference where they bumped into each other and they're like, oh, you wrote a paper about that? That's exactly what I wanted, right? And I feel like that's a lot of scientific discovery and stuff is going to come out from that, because AI will be able to connect those dots, across fields
Absolutely.
and help you, if you're an expert in one field to broaden your horizon. So very
Uh,
exciting times for sure.
Totally. It's I said this the other day, and it's like these three sort of A's in AI. It's like what should AI do, and like what can it do? It amplifies your ideas, so like it allows your voice to go farther with less work. So you can take a podcast and transcribe it and create that into a blog, and it amplifies you. It's an amplification device. It's also a acceleration device. So you had some idea, you wanted to go from A to B. You could go there like completely manually, and it's completely possible, but it just accelerates that process so you can get from A to B quicker. So it amplifies, it accelerates, and it also augments. And so you have some sorts of ideas that you're thinking about it in this way, and it could be like, hey, like I know you're thinking about it this way, but there's something over here that you're not really considering. Can I bring that forward to you? And like,
Yeah.
would you like, does this make sense to play? And
Yeah.
you're like, oh wow, that's
I love that acronym, by the way. You should own that. Accelerate, amplify, accelerate, augment. Let's make it a chant or something.
yeah. No, I thought it was just cool because it's just like it really is. You want it to be proactive in ways that you're not like covering your blind spots. It's a
Right,
helpful like companion that's not getting in the way, but it's accelerating your process, and then it allows you to do like more things than you would have never even done.
right.
So the
Yeah,
amplifying part, I don't know.
love it,
There we
love
go.
it.
Triple A.
Triple A. They might sue us for
So
it.
yeah, totally. Well, I mean, we talked a little bit about Soham, which is crazy. So I was kind of just blown away by that whole thing. I was like, people are joking now. It's like it has to be fake.
Yeah,
Like,
it is crazy. Like, yeah, but did you know about like the overemployed thing before this, or
yeah, I
okay?
did know.
Because yeah,
And I
that
knew some
subreddit
people.
is wild though. I mean, it's just the craziest thing.
It's really, yeah. I mean, like, it shows a structural flaw in sort of employment and expectations.
Right.
And there's a part of me it's like hustle and hustle. There's also a loyalty part of me that's
Yeah.
like screw you.
Right.
Like um, if an employer should rightly, I mean, if like yeah, you
Yeah.
get fired. I mean, you're
Right.
lying to your employer and you're their trust and everything. But it's like also, I mean, the Soham thing, that's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
no, it's
nuts.
crazy, but I also think it's a because I was born in Pakistan, so I understand
Right.
there's a mentality, unfortunately, in South Asia, which is a because you grow up in a very hustler kind of mentality where you got to outwit the system. We call it jugaad, like that's the word for it, where it's all about because everything is kind of set up in that way, and so if you don't have the street smart whatever, right, you just can't get in. So there's this weird kind of fucked up mentality, unfortunately, in a lot of people there, which I mean, you see that in the stereotype, and unfortunately, the Indian scammer stereotype, etc.
Right.
It's not all of them, obviously, but there is that mentality, and unfortunately, I where I land, is a it actually obviously it's worse for the other side, but it's even worse for you because actually, if you think about it, the best way if your goal was to make a lot of money, it's better to have one job that can make you millions. The unfortunate piece is like these guys are so smart. If they had just taken that talent and applied it to one job, they would have been actually able to make a lot more money with a lot less stress than haggling 10, 100K jobs. They could have made millions of dollars in one job and gotten a great exit if they had just focused their energies on it. But because they have that hustler mentality, it's almost like they enjoy the hustle more than the results. It's actually
Mhm.
there was this viral post last year about this. Some guy said, I want to do fraud. There's something about fraud that just makes my adrenaline rush. And it's like, it's not even about the results. It's like, but that's as sad as it is. There's a Some people just, have that, in their heads. If you're, anyone, you guys listening, you kind of understand what I'm saying. I'm saying it's actually better for you financially and stuff as well. Just focus,
So
play by the rules.
yeah,
You will get, your carrot.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like compounding growth too.
Yeah.
It's like, you if the growth rate is like very little, which is what you're doing when you have all these little jobs, it's, I don't know. It's, yeah, interesting. Um, but yeah, very cool. And not cool at the same time. But I think so. We have like this whole agenda of like all these things covering
Yeah,
like
yeah, I know.
FAL and
Generative media.
music, generative media. One of the things I just want to touch on real quick, just because I thought it was interesting. Maybe we'll talk about it on a different episode. I know we mentioned this last time as well about like AI music. Something that we haven't really talked about. I'm a musician. I love playing the keyboard. I've been busy and haven't been playing around with it that much, but I have decent, musical sense. The theory has slipped away from me now, but I can explain things pretty well. But Suno is an AI music generator, and this week there was a band that kind of, I don't know if it's actually used Suno or not, but a band that's gone viral. They get 800,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, called Velvet Sundown.
Maybe I saw that. I saw there was a K-pop movie that it wasn't exactly AI, but it was animated characters, and they blew up a lot on Netflix.
Really?
This is different, right? Probably. Velvet Underground. Interesting. I think yeah, I did
Vel
see some of that.
yeah,
This
Velvet
is the future.
Sundown. It's crazy. I mean, 800,000 monthly listeners. I mean,
Yeah.
I listen
On
to the
Spotify?
songs on Spotify. And so it
Wow.
says it. Like you can look it up. I mean, just go to Spotify, Velvet Sundown, and listen to the songs. It actually they start off really good. The instrumentals were great. It was like a acoustic rock type whatever. And the lyrics, not that good. They were still kind of cringy. I was like, oh, when the lyrics came in, I was like, bummer. Because I have heard songs that actually the lyrics were great. Um,
Interesting. So these were like then one short songs. It wasn't like a musician samples used Suno and then crafted a good song or something.
I'm not entirely sure the process. I didn't research and dig into it that much beyond like the high level, hey, look, there's like some music that people are listening to. But it was it kind of not blew my mind, but because I knew this would happen. You're gonna see a whole new generation of artists that are going to be
It's insane.
generating music.
No, seriously. There's something we don't understand. Like our future celebrities and stars are going to be AI, and like the K-pop movie was just such a one of those like, okay, fuck, it's happening. Like it was a
Really?
movie. It
Yeah.
was on Netflix. Forgot the name, but basically it's a bunch of K-pop stars, and they're actually like zombie fighters or stuff. I just saw the trailer, but saw that on Netflix. I'm like, okay, not really into that. I like some K-pop songs, but I'm not into. I'm not going to watch a movie, especially an animated movie about them. But then I see a Netflix post about apparently it's in the movie they do songs, so it's a musical. Like it's a they do songs with like the animated character, kind of like gorillas. They're doing a
Mhm.
song. There's a story,
Right.
and they were like the number one or number three top YouTube videos of the week or whatever. The songs were crazy, millions of views. People love these
Totally.
characters, and I'm like, this is the future. This is digital identity, because think about it. You can with Suno you can generate a song, but that's just a song. What people connect with is the artist, the story behind the artist, right? And so you can create like so what they did was and this wasn't like AI generated, this was actually human actors behind the scene. But think about it. Like they have a storyline. So you already have a story. You have characters. So you're attached to the character, and then the character is singing these songs. And you can generate each of those phases. And suddenly you have a storyline, characters in a universe, and a story. It's like that's like killer. That's like what audiences want. They want that connection. And so I wonder where you're going to be able to spin up these worlds that have a movie, make a movie out of these characters, give them have a music track, and then based on the audience's reaction, maybe have a spin-off sequel of a single standalone character, etc. You can build a whole universe and shut it down, in basically days or weeks, and then move on. So it's crazy.
It's so exciting. I mean, like, because think about it. I mean, people always fall back to this whole sense like, oh, but it's not real. And then the reality is, I mean, it is real just as much as Star Wars is real, just as much as Iron
Right,
Man is real, just as much as
right.
like your SpongeBob is real. Like, I mean, when you're watching SpongeBob, it's an animated TV show that, it's not a real person. It's a sponge that talks and they do weird things. And it's like, who cares? It was entertaining, at least for children, and it's like cool. And somebody behind the scenes wrote the scripts and did the lines and everything. If AI does more of that process, cool. If it's not good, it's not good. Doesn't matter if it was a human that wrote it or an AI that wrote it. If it's good, it's good. I don't care about the process or the technology used in making those big movies. Um, it, it, I listened to this podcast, Jack Altman. So Sam Altman's brother, Jack it's like Alt Capital, and he has like this podcast like everybody else, just like us. We have a podcast. He has a
Everyone has a
podcast.
podcast.
Um,
Hopefully, everyone will have a show and a movie. So maybe that's the next.
right. But he was talking to Vinod Khosla, and they were talking about just the Hollywood industry, and they were talking about disruption. And, earlier this year with the Actors Guild, and they all went on strike to like prevent the use of AI in movies so they can all keep their jobs. So Disney and Paramount, all the people that signed that Actors Guild strike, essentially, they're like, okay, we won't use AI at a high level. They won't use AI to replace actors, right? But you know what's going to happen? It's like Disney's going to spend $100 million to create some movie that makes $50 million at the box office. It's going to net them negative 50 million. They're going to lose money on that. But then you have some indie shop that's going to be like 20 people that can spend $1 million using AI and make $20 million on that movie. And it's like, you're going to see this. I hate how this happens with,
It always
I don't
happens.
know how, I have to turn it off somehow with the thumbs up. The thumbs up went up when I was recording. But I mean, yeah, it's going to be such a crazy world where it's a good world where it's going to make more movies. Like I would consume if Disney came out and made a Star Wars movie that was good about exploring all those characters rather than taking a year, they could do it every month. I would watch every single one of them. And it's just like, it'd be fun. And I don't
Yeah,
care as long as it was good
yeah.
and it was
No,
consistent with characters.
it's so interesting, and I wonder in this age, like, how would you stand out when you can just create Star Wars level content, like right there? And it's almost I was watching this podcast, Colin and Samir, I think I mentioned to you earlier
Right.
this week about this guy. He was like called the Banksy of marketing viral videos and
Right.
stuff, and he made an interesting point, and I wonder if this is true. He says that people are less interested in the story and more interested in the meta narrative of the story. So yeah, you created a cool show, but people almost are more interested in your struggle to make that show because they want to connect with you. That's why I show speed or guys like people are just watching people just like sitting there talking or playing a video game because they just want that connection. And I wonder maybe in the age of AI, like with this, when everyone can just create cool content, maybe it's about that connection to the influencer or someone, and how did they come up with that story is more important. That becomes the story, right? So it's fascinating, how we evolve.
Yeah, you're right. It's wild. I'm excited. I'm excited for this next generation of people and kids that grow up kind of this is native to them.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
lucky. I mean, we're lucky to be, relatively like if we were at the end of like my parents or my grandparents, they won't see the fruits of all the change. And I said this to my girlfriend once in a while. I was like, I just don't want to die. I cannot die in the next 20 years. I do not want an accident to happen. I just like, please, it's so exciting. We live in such a crazy,
And it's like
crazy
fast. It's like
time.
you don't want to be there. Like there's will be some guy who dies the day before longevity, escape velocity, or ASI or whatever, and I'm like,
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I was on this like the same call that I was on the other day with the AI salon. The head there, we got one of the organizers. He was talking about how recently in the last like last few weeks, all the big major AI labs haven't been talking as much about AGI.
yeah,
Like
more about
they went
ASI.
straight
Yeah,
to super intelligence. They've
right,
kind
right.
of the AGI stuff is like they haven't talked about it that much, but they're going super intelligence, super
Mm,
intelligence. So
yeah,
what does that mean? I mean, that's
yeah. It'll be.
interesting.
I don't know. The more time, the more I'm a little. I feel like, and thinks I'm opposite the same thing where we used to think naively that AGI, once AGI arrives or something, everything changes that day. And I feel like it'll, and the word I guess Karpati uses, jagged intelligence, where it'll be like super in some areas but not in other areas. And I wonder, we'll just have this weird phase where we'll be able to get super intelligence in certain areas but not in other areas.
Mhm.
And then the question becomes, is that even ASI? Because technically, if you ASI, true ASI, once it is ASI, would be good. Once it's good enough in one domain, it should be smart enough to get good enough in pretty much everything. That is actually true super intelligence. So maybe that's why it changes, and that's where AGI is interesting. Because I mean, read even today's LLMs. I mean, they're AGI in so like writing essays and like there's you can name dozens of tasks that are intrinsic to what we do today that they basically are there from for any metric we had, and we keep moving that goalpost. But if you go back 5-10 years and you show it to them, they'll say, yeah, that's passes the Turing test, passes that. That all that got blown out of the water, but nothing really changed. I mean, things change on the fringe, but fundamentally we're the same, society. And so the question becomes like, when these things get to that threshold, what will happen? How will we adapt, etc.? Will it be a silent, thing that just spreads until one day we wake up and go fuck, or it'll gonna be a gradual, you know?
I think that, I mean, yeah, I think humans, this is one area where like where history repeats itself. And you hear with technology, you hear the same thing over and over again about one day this technology is going to come, whether it's the steam engine, electricity, the internet, the personal computer, and it's just going to change everything overnight. It's never happened that way. Solar electricity, it'll never happen that way. And I don't think it will ever happen that way. And it'll be a slow adoption. It'll be a slow integration. And for the people out there that are like either in this space and like, oh, why should I start a company? Or why should I do this thing? Why should I study computer science? Why should I like do this when this is right around the corner? I mean, okay, then like why should you even, like do anything? Like
Yeah,
when something new is gonna like it's like a bad argument, I think, that you
right.
don't do something today because tomorrow something might happen. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, you gotta, be optimistic about the future, but at the same time, you gotta like, be almost like pessimistic in the present, where you're like, I'm not gonna, not save my 401k or something just because AGI is coming tomorrow. Just like have a balance of both wolves, I guess, in your head. So I mean, I think of the same way like you. It's like I don't want to die tomorrow, but then I hear these stories like people are like, oh, but AGI is coming, so I got to be safe. I'm like, yeah, but I'm gonna go to Europe. I'm gonna take those trips. I'm gonna live my life. I don't want to be in the very chance that I'm 60 years old and I've been waiting for AGI or something, right?
right.
So live your life. Maybe don't go skydiving. I don't know. I mean, or maybe do, but with a certified company, right?
Right.
Be
No, totally. There was a quote, I forget who it was, so maybe if you remember who it was, let me know. But it was, pessimistic people sound smart, but optimistic people make money. And it's
oh
like
yeah,
I thought that was a great quote because it's really true. Like I know people in my life who are sometimes more on the pessimistic end about like the way the world's working. I'm like, well, you could always look at the dark side. It's like it's very easy. We're humans, we've evolved to be hyper aware of all the predators out there, and you know that's why news is always the bad news, and that's what
yeah,
drives
yeah,
views. But it's like, okay, cool. Like you could get so caught up in that world, or I mean, hey, this is the way the world is today. What are the opportunities? What can I build so to make my life better, make me a happier person, and live the journey. I mean, that's the point of life is living that journey.
yeah.
So
Exactly. It's like I remember. I don't know the exact word, but I love. I'm paraphrasing, but I love that quote. I think it's by Woody Allen. He says that, don't have sex, don't do drugs, don't ever get out of your comfort zone, don't travel, don't do anything that jeopardize your safety. You may or may not live to 100 years, but you'll definitely feel like it.
yeah, totally,
So
totally,
yeah.
yeah.
Anyways,
Well,
I feel like we haven't really talked about generative media, and this is supposed to be a generative media podcast, so maybe we should like touch on a couple of those items.
totally. I mean, yeah, we could touch on
Yeah.
some of the items. I know we're coming up on time even too. So I just wonder, like, what should we talk about? We have all these things, and I mean, this is not something. I mean, we can push a lot of stuff to next week as well. Was there anything that you wanted to touch on?
Well, one thing I thought that was really cool was there's a couple of a model. We've talked about video generators like VO3 and stuff, but there's another transformation which is video to video, which I think is pretty cool. It's still expensive, but basically it's style transfer for video. So what you do is you take a video of, let's say, us talking, and then I know you did this kind of like with our first episode. You made a clip of us in claymation, so you can give it a claymation style, and then you get the same video, same audio, but I'm like a puppet or a muppet,
Right.
whatever, etc. And it leads to all kinds of cool, I think, variations of the original content. So there's a bunch of models for that, but one that came out recently was Ray 2 Modify, and Luma is the company behind the Ray 2, decent model, a little expensive. I think it's like 30 seconds per second of output, so it's expensive, but it was pretty decent. And so what I did was I was trying it out with some memes and stuff. So it's on Fall. We'll link it, so you guys can check it out. It's a little like I wish they would just do it under the hood, but you do have to need a workflow. But the workflow is because it needs basically a frame, the first frame of the video, and then it needs the new style. So what you have to do is you almost need a pipeline where you take the video, you extract the first frame using FFmpeg or whatever, and there's APIs for that in Fall, and somebody actually built a pipeline so you can just run it, and then you take that image and then use something like FlexFlow Context or whatever your favorite image editing model and make it into anime style, claymation style, whatever you want, and then you take the new style first frame and the original video and you feed it and you get the final video. So thought it was a cool workflow. I'd played around with it. Worked decently for videos that don't have a lot of crazy movement. So especially for still shots stuff, it does pretty decent. The coherence is pretty good. So check it out. I
Right.
would say it's pretty good. And then if you want to add sound to that, there's a variety of sound effect generators. 11 Labs has sound effects, but also there's models like Audio and stuff, which you can just give it a video and it'll automatically infer, like if it's a guy sitting down playing guitar, it'll just add guitar sounds. Or, somebody cutting fruit, it'll add an ASMR like cutting sound. So if you the reason I wanted to like bring this up was because people have been using VO3 a lot, but VO3 is expensive, and this is a great cheap alternative because almost for a tenth of the price, you can just get the video either by generating the video using Kling or whatever, or using video to video, and then add sound and in total it'll be a tenth of the price of VO3. But basically, for certain clips, it basically gives you the same quality. So
Right.
it's a great hack.
This is like the stuff that I feel there's so many creatives and people that are in this space. Like even me, I didn't know about Ray 2 till you put it on our agenda. And when I click on the link and see Foul there, it's like what you just said. There you have to have the video, you have to have an image, you got to take that image and convert it into a new style. I even look at that thing and I was reading right now while you were talking about this, I was looking at it like, how does it work? It's not user friendly. I
Right,
mean,
right.
isn't that crazy to me? It's like we have
Yeah.
on the tips of our fingers such cool technology. And it's just like, no, you got to do this, and you got to do this, you got to stitch this together, you got to take it over here, you got to do this thing, and that's going to cost you 35 cents per every second of a video. And it's like, you're like, what? Like, how is anyone expected to ever leverage these tools until
I
there's a company
know.
that comes
It's
around and
so
just
frustrating,
simplifies
but
it?
yeah. And then that's where the low-hanging fruit is. When you can optimize, you can create wrappers. Fall actually lets you create a pipeline using a GUI tool like a Comfy UI. But then it actually, once you make it, you can make it basically it becomes an API. And so you set it like in the
Really?
UI, and then you basically make an API. You can build an app on it or use it internally for your work process. So you're running three different models, what step one, step two, step three. But instead of doing it manually or stitching it together yourself by calling the API, you make it in Fall, and that's one single API. So actually, I've underutilized that workflow they have, but I like the pipeline flow. But to your point about this, like when I saw Ray 2, honestly, I was on a walk and I was so excited because I had all these ideas. What I wanted to do was I wanted to take an old anime shows like the Iron Man intro, and I wanted to make it cinematic. Or I wanted to take the Avengers, like, the portal scene when they all come back, in the
Right.
final moment. I was like, let's make an anime version. And I was like, yeah, first, it's super expensive. Second is, if a scene changes, you need to give the frame again because it totally dissolves. So actually what you need to do is you anything 1 to 2 minute long video, you actually need to divide it into 3 second chunks, then make sure those 3 second chunks have a single scene and it doesn't switch, then get the frame. And I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. But
Right.
somebody who figures that out, I mean, and you can charge a premium for that shit and people will pay. Imagine like taking the Avengers scene or whatever and making an anime version of that. You would go
Right.
viral for sure, right? I mean, it might cost you 30, 50, $100, but
Right.
if you get millions of views,
Totally.
it's insane.
Right.
So
It's kind of nuts because this, I remember like five years ago, let's say, you're looking at like, I want to build something super cool. Like what's super cool? And all the super cool stuff was hard. Like you wanted to build an API, like let's say you had this idea, like I want to build an API as a service. What am I going to do? I don't know. Everything's been built. Like the reality was like 5, 10 years ago, most businesses, I'm not saying all, but like a lot of businesses and the ideas were kind of taken. There were YC startups were still being created for sure. Absolutely. But like there were incumbents, the internet was mature and, you needed a lot of money, VC money, and you need to hire a lot of people, put a lot of smart people in a room. And you finally solve some like really technically hard problem that you can charge some money for and you build a business off of that. Now, when the paradigm shifts, you have like really cool technology that just isn't user friendly. And so
mhm.
an individual developer, like somebody that's, just a recent college grad, can go in, find this one thing. Hey, I'm going to spend a day, like literally you could spend a day, write a Python script, make this workflow, put it behind an API, integrate Stripe in a week max. You have this cool tech. You wrapped it around with some like really convenient features, everything. You charge for it. Boom. Like
Yeah,
there's your
yeah.
micro
No,
business.
absolutely. There's so much low-hanging fruit. And speaking of that, because I know you're super into productivity and stuff, whatever you want to talk about, because I know you're a Raycast nerd and use other tools and stuff. So you want to talk about your workflow and stuff, because I feel like you are really good at using the tooling around you, to just like 10x your productivity and stuff.
Yeah, totally. I'll talk about this real quick. But yeah, I think tools are a cool force multiplier. And it's interesting and it's important to recognize, you know, hey, what's this process that I'm doing over like multiple times over the course of some period? Like, hey, your job required you to do this. Like, how can you automate this? How can you think about that differently? And so, I won't get into MCP much, and but it's related, and we'll dig into it. That maybe next episode we'll talk a little bit more about MCP and like how we're using it. But just like this ChatGPT, it's a chatbot. Everybody knows ChatGPT. There's Claude. They have the desktop apps that you can download to your desktop. And a lot of software engineers, they've liked this app called Raycast. And essentially what Raycast is, it's a Spotlight replacement. So Spotlight on your Mac is kind of just like this universal search that you open up and you can search your files. And it was great 10 years ago. It was cool because Windows didn't really have this, but now it's just like super bad and it should have been better. And Raycast came in essentially. They're like, hey, replace Spotlight with Raycast and has all your search functionalities, everything, but it automates and it creates extensions for like all these certain things that you can do on your computer, such as managing windows. So I have, like two windows left and right, and I could just easily with a keyboard command move, you know, my Gmail to my left and my code editor to the right, like boom, boom, done, easy. And then I can have shortcuts. And I learned some of these keyboard commands and they help improve, the things that I do every single day that take me 30 seconds, but now it takes me one. Um, but then they also recently added AI chat. And that's really kind of when I downloaded Raycast was they had
Mm,
a desktop chat. So it allowed me to access every AI provider's models, ChatGPT or GPT-4, Gemini, Claude, the other ones like Grok and DeepSeek and whatever. They have all the models providers. A new one comes out, I can switch between them without downloading a new app, without having to create a new account. I can use it. Very cool. But they're really developer forward. And they added in essentially extensions into your chat. So just like how ChatGPT now has like web search and some like deep research and image gen, They have that, but like on steroids, and users can create extensions. And so essentially what I did was we have a blog for JellyPod, and that blog has our new product announcements. It has just random articles. And in Raycast, I just hooked up an extension, an MCP extension essentially. And I said, hey, create a blog about this topic. Raycast will go, it'll look at our blog, the back end of our blog. It'll see all the articles that we've written. It'll see the structure of those articles. It'll write a blog article for me, and it'll post it into our content management system, and it'll set it as a draft. And I'm essentially just living inside that chat window. I'm like, oh, like make a change to that blog article, make it longer,
Hmm.
or, generate the image, and put the image in that blog there. And it knows how to do that with the structure that I've already configured, and it will just go and live in our blog. And so that kind of blew my mind because previously, how we're working, it's like we go to ChatGPT, we put some articles and we connect, like here's a previous article, use this as a reference, and you copy and paste and you do this stuff, and then you have to copy the final output, put it into the system. So you have to, the title, copy, paste the title or description, the blog content and all that stuff. But now it's like, why do you need to copy and paste everything? Why do you have to like do all this process around doing work to do the work? So now I'm just
Right.
living in Raycast, doing that, saying, hey, no, it looks good, publish it. And, it'll just
Love it.
publish the
No, that's
article
so
for me.
cool. That's so powerful. And because Raycast has integrated your, it has access to all your files and folders on your local machine. So instead
Exactly.
of like copy pasting and stuff, guys, you can just say, go to this folder, get my notes for whatever, and make a
Right.
blog about it or whatever, and then post it there. So
Right.
instantly connected to all these things. So
And
that's
they have
awesome.
presets. So I have a few presets. It's like one is a JellyPod blog writer. And so it has a system prompt that I've wrote. It's like, hey, you're JellyPod. Like, this is what JellyPod is. You have access to like these tools. And like I'll say, hey, you have web search, you have like the CMS, the content management system tool, and so like all that stuff. And yeah, no, it's sweet. Like, and the next thing is like GitHub. Like when we have product releases, I just connected GitHub into Raycast. So I'm like, hey, look at the last PR that I just merged. Look at that code. Read the description of that code and write a product update announcement. And it'll do a draft. It'll put it into our product updates in the blog, and then I'll just go in. I'll review it. I'll make tweaks, but at least I have like an 80% solution. So that's sick.
Well, that's pretty sick, actually. I don't know. I wonder now. I'm like, maybe we should make a GitHub action with like a product updates flag that just does that or something. That's
I
pretty
know.
cool.
I've been thinking about that too because yeah, I was like, what's the right way to do it? Is it like a product updates flag? Probably. Is it like runs on every merge and it just like reviews the description and it's like this was a new product update. Let's write a draft and then ping
Right,
us like,
right.
hey, I wrote a draft product update for this. Is this right? And you're like, oh wait, no, don't need that. I'll delete that.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
yeah. That's so much to automate. No, I love it. I love it. Life is just a series of pipelines. You just, gotta polish them.
It's the biggest leverage thing. If you're listening to this right now, it's like I told some of my friends this last week. Like, if you just start to think about problems like this and know that there is intelligent, like if you could do it as a human, and if it's like copy and pasting and clicking and dragging and dropping, there's now a better way to do that stuff. And if you
Hmm.
can learn those tools and you can kind of be adequate in explaining you know, and like what you're doing, there are people willing to hire chief automation officers, like like efficiency engineers. Like these are going to be the jobs.
Yeah,
So,
get him before Soham takes him. This is like, yeah, it's like,
100%, 100%.
yeah,
Well, and I know we're at like almost an hour now, but we talked about a lot of stuff. Not as much media today, but we
yeah.
have all these
No,
things on this agenda, and we'll toss them to next week. So,
yeah, yeah. And hopefully you guys enjoy, us riffing on the meta stuff as well. Before obviously technology is the core to this podcast, but I feel like a lot of the things we talk about, inform the technology and stuff. So it's important to kind of be on top of it and, talk through it and try to wrap your head around it because the world is changing so fast and there's so many opportunities and it's exciting and scary at the same time. But, I personally, I almost live in a perpetual state of FOMO. I'm like, oh my God, I got to do X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. So,
Right.
so
Right. Totally. Sweet. Well, okay. Well, we'll talk next week and have
yeah,
a happy July 4th.
yeah. Happy July 4th.
Yep.
Take care, guys. Bye.